The raid on Sol. The sky above Sol, 7 burned with Imperial fire. From orbit, General Kael'Tharr watched the last human settlement on the edge of the ruined Sol system collapse into ash. The operation was swift. No resistance, no transmissions, only the quiet dying glow of crumbling structures. It was the 5th sweep of what the Empire called a legacy sweep, the final erasure of humanity's homeworld and its failed remnants. Kael'Tharr stood tall, a hulking figure of gray-plated skin and ceremonial armor. His 4 eyes tracked the chaos below without emotion. To him, this was just another system, another assignment, another name forgotten in the endless churn of galactic dominance. "Commander," came the voice of his adjutant through the comlink. "No hostile signatures detected. Scanners show biomass remnants only. Estimated 0 survivors." He nodded once. "Initiate ground sweep. Leave nothing that breathes." Kael'Tharr descended with a small elite unit to the surface. The air was thick with dust and plasma residue. The structures, once domes of silver and glass, were shattered like bones. He walked slowly through the ruins, not searching for anything in particular. The mission was complete. This was routine, efficient, necessary. And then, he heard it. A sound so alien in the void of war zones that it stopped his soldiers in their tracks. A faint, reedy cry. Weak, rhythmic. A child. Weapons raised, they traced the sound to a partially collapsed structure. Kael'Tharr motioned for his soldiers to stand down. He stepped forward himself, pushing aside debris with a single gauntlet hand. Beneath a shattered bench, wrapped in a thermal blanket, was a human infant, barely a few weeks old. Her face was smeared with dust, but her lungs were strong. She cried with rage, not fear. "She should not be alive," murmured one of the soldiers, a reptilian officer with blue-scaled skin. "No one survived the bombardment." "She did," Kael'Tharr said. He reached down slowly, and the baby stopped crying. Her large eyes locked onto his with eerie calm. There was no fear, just curiosity, innocence. Around her neck was a cracked data tag. He lifted it gently. Only one name was displayed on the flickering screen. "Elya." "Orders are clear," the soldier said. "No survivors, especially not humans." Kael'Tharr was silent. "General, she is no threat," he said quietly. "She is alone. Permission to terminate." "No." The silence that followed was dense. "I will take her. Personally," Kael'Tharr stated. "Inform command that no life was found. The records will be adjusted. You would risk your name for this?" Kael'Tharr turned to face him. "You forget your place, Lieutenant." The officer fell silent. He took the child in his arms. She barely weighed more than his four-mounted blade. She looked up at him again, blinking slowly, as though trying to understand who, or what, he was. Back aboard his flagship, Asira Prime, Kael'Tharr placed the infant in a sealed stasis pod modified for comfort, connected it to the medical AI, and initiated a biometric analysis. No disease, no implants, no unusual traits, except one anomaly. Her genome profile triggered a redacted data file in the ship's database. Name, Elya, Calyx the AI intoned. Surname, redacted class 0, full identification sealed under Imperial Directive 07, Alpha Black. Kael'Tharr frowned. Override. Show me the full designation. Authorization denied. Identity protected under Empire High Code. Reclassification requires triumvirate clearance. His brow tightened. Who was this child? He sat beside the pod, staring at the small figure now asleep in the glowing cradle of light. Her breathing was slow and even, peaceful. In all his years of conquest, Kael'Tharr had destroyed worlds, ended bloodlines, reshaped regions of the galaxy. But this helpless creature had survived against all odds. Not through force or strategy, but through chance or something more. He made a decision then, quiet and unspoken. Elya would live, and she would grow. Not as a soldier, not as an experiment, as a question the Empire dare not ask. The General's experiment. 10 years later, the Asira Prime cut through the darkness of Sector 9 like a spearhead of judgment. Inside the command deck, General Kael'Tharr observed tactical projections while quiet murmurs echoed between his officers. But the calm focus was broken when a notification chimed in his neural interface. Elya has bypassed Security Protocol 12 again. He sighed, closed the projection, and turned to the ship's AI. Calyx, where's she now? Main reactor core. Again. Kael'Tharr allowed himself a rare smirk. Of course. Deep in the engineering sector, the reactor core pulsed with quiet power. Between humming conduits and magnetic field generators, a small human girl crouched with a scanner in one hand and a decryption tool in the other. 2 nanoseconds faster than yesterday, Elya whispered to herself, beaming with pride. She was 11 now, lithe, wiry, hair bound in a practical braid. Her clothes were a blend of technician's uniform and field gear, custom-modified from alien designs. She tapped into a conduit and listened to the resonance. Then she heard the familiar thump of armored boots behind her. You know this section is off-limits, Kael'Tharr said, folding his arms. Elya didn't even flinch. If it's off-limits, your encryption protocols should be stronger. He grunted. Is that an excuse or a challenge? A data point. She finally turned to him, grinning. Kael'Tharr stared down at her, equal parts frustrated and impressed. You could dismantle this ship if I gave you a week, he said. Yet you insist on poking around like a scavenger. I want to understand everything, she said. If I'm going to live on a warship, I should know how it breathes. She walked beside him as he led her back toward the upper decks. The corridors buzzed with life. Alien crew members, various species, some still glaring at her as they passed. Most tolerated her presence. Some whispered behind her back. A human child raised by the general himself? It defied protocol, tradition, and ideology. Still, none dared question Kael'Tharr openly. In her quarters, a chamber retrofitted with books, holos, simulators, and relics from dozens of species. Elya sat at her desk, while Calyx projected an image of a strategic battle map. Kael'Tharr stood behind her as she analyzed the layout. You're being baited into a false flank, she muttered, tracing the enemy fleet movements with her finger. He nodded. Explain. The enemy sacrifices 2 squadrons to force an overcommit pincer. If you take the bait, you lose your central command ship. Good, he said. You caught it faster than my first strategist did. She glanced at him, eyes narrowing. Is that why I'm here? Because I'm useful? Kael'Tharr was silent. I don't mind being useful, she added, softer. I just want to know what I am to you. He studied her for a long time. The girl had grown sharp, quick-witted, and emotionally aware. Traits the Empire found dangerous when combined in a human. Especially this one. He pulled a small device from his belt and handed it to her. What's this? She asked. Your original identification tag. I had it reconstructed. She tapped the screen. Name, Elya. Surname, Rhen Var. Status, classified, level 0. Access denied. Review, Imperial Directive 07, Alpha, black. Her brow furrowed. Why is my last name locked? Kael'Tharr didn't speak right away. When I first found you, the tag was damaged. Your surname meant nothing to me. But recently, a medical scan cross-referenced Galactic archives. Your surname triggered a response. He took a breath, rare for someone who claimed not to need one. You are descended from Rhen Var, the man who nearly destroyed the Empire 2 centuries ago, the one who led the first human rebellion. Elya's face paled. That's impossible. No, it's fate and danger. The Empire buried his legacy so deeply that not even your DNA was supposed to survive. She clenched the tag tightly. So what happens now? Kael'Tharr looked at her, truly looked, past the cleverness, past the training, past the protocols. That is not up to the Empire, he said. It's up to you. The Rhen Var protocol. The cold silence of Kael'Tharr's private chamber was disturbed only by the hum of encrypted data streams filtering through the central command core. On the massive display wall, fragments of historical records, tactical logs, and sealed directives rotated slowly in the air, each bearing the same forbidden name. Rhen Var. Kael'Tharr had seen enough bloodlines to know most were propaganda tools, symbols twisted to inspire fear or loyalty. But this was different. Rhen Var wasn't a myth. He was a wound the Empire had never fully healed. Kael'Tharr turned away from the display as the chamber doors hissed open. Elya stepped in, the identification tag still clutched in her hand. Her face was pale but composed. "Tell me the truth. Not just who he was. Tell me why the Empire still fears him." Kael'Tharr motioned for the console to respond. A moment later, Calyx, the ship's AI, projected a dark red file previously sealed under Tri-Council encryption. Subject Rhen Var. Threat level Omega Black. Directive extermination of all direct bloodline descendants. Reason capable of asymmetric galactic disruption. Kael'Tharr let the words hang in the air. He was a rebel? Elya asked. No, he was a strategist. A nightmare. He learned how to manipulate Imperial systems, supply chains, psychological operations, artificial intelligences. He wasn't just fighting us, he was undoing us. Calyx continued. Subject Rhen Var disabled 7 Imperial fleets without firing a weapon. Used targeted misinformation and AI spoofing to trigger interspecies conflicts. Caused a mutiny at Raxilon Prime. Engineered the fracture of the Valtor Treaty. Elya's hands trembled. His rebellion wasn't large, Kael'Tharr added, but it was smart. Too smart. The Empire learned, then, that humans weren't dangerous because of numbers. They were dangerous because of their unpredictability. And now, I carry his name, she said. Kael'Tharr nodded slowly. And the Empire would kill you for it, no matter your innocence. Because of something I didn't choose. Legacy is rarely a choice, he said. But what you do with it, that is yours. Later that cycle, Kael'Tharr met with 3 of his senior officers, trusted allies, veterans of decades of campaigns. He didn't bring Elya. Not yet. They sat in a darkened war chamber aboard Asira Prime, shielded by a silence field. Your human experiment, said Varnex, a bipedal insectoid commander, has drawn attention. Rumors of her identity are spreading. How far? Kael'Tharr asked. Too far. I intercepted a signal sent to Imperial Intelligence Corps. Another officer, sub-strategist Column, added, they know she's aboard. They're preparing to invoke the Rhen Var protocol. The air seemed to thin. That protocol hasn't been used in 2 centuries, Kael'Tharr said flatly. Because there hasn't been a Rhen Var in 2 centuries, Column replied. They will come, and they will not negotiate. A long silence passed. Then Kael'Tharr spoke, slowly, deliberately. If the Empire fears a child more than it fears its own decay, then perhaps it does not deserve to stand. That night, Elya stood alone in the observation dome, staring out at the field of stars. Each pinprick of light, a system, a story, a civilization. She heard the footsteps behind her, but didn't turn. I saw the directive, she said. They'd kill me just for existing. Kael'Tharr walked to her side. Yes. She looked up at him. What do you see when you look at me? He was quiet for a long time. At first, a variable, a curiosity, a question the Empire refused to ask. His tone softened. Now, I see the answer to that question. Elya's voice trembled. I don't want to become a weapon. You don't have to, he said. But if you want to survive, you must decide who you are before they decide for you. Back in the war chamber, Kael'Tharr inputted a command into the ship's systems. Internal restructure. Authorization Kael'Tharr.Omega. Status. Initiate defection contingency. Priority. Protect Rhen Var. As the command confirmed, Kael'Tharr spoke aloud, to himself and to history. The Empire made its choice the day it feared a child more than truth. The breaking line. The stars ahead twisted as Asira Prime dropped out of warp. The ship came to rest on the edge of a dead system. Once home to a thriving civilization, now just frozen rocks and debris orbiting a collapsed star. It was here Kael'Tharr would make his stand. Every sensor on the ship screamed warnings. An Imperial interdiction fleet had emerged from the void behind them. 5 cruisers, 2 dreadnoughts, and a black flag command ship bearing the seal of Imperial intelligence. No hails, no diplomacy, only judgment. Elya watched from the command deck, her eyes wide but steady. She had seen simulations of battles, war games Kael'Tharr had crafted for her education. This was different, real, loud, final. We won't survive that fleet, she said quietly. Kael'Tharr didn't disagree. Survival isn't the objective. She turned to him, panic beginning to bloom. Then what is? Buying you time. No, she snapped. You raised me. You taught me not just to survive, but to think, to fight smart. Running makes me a fugitive. Dying makes me a martyr. Neither solves the problem. His gaze was unreadable. Then what would you do? She walked to the tactical console and pulled up the Imperial formation. They think we're going to flee. Let's show them something else. Kael'Tharr raised a brow. Explain. Transmit a surrender signal. Low band, unencrypted. Make it look panicked. Then while they're closing in, we jettison the outer hull, plating on port side 7. Inside it, we load a stealth pod, my pod. They won't scan it if they think it's debris. He considered the plan. Risky. Clever. Once they board, they'll search for me, she continued. But I won't be here. I'll be long gone. You can stall them, lie, delay, mislead. You're the only one they might still hesitate to execute. He was silent. Don't argue, she said, softer now. If you die today, I carry your legacy too. A pause. Then he nodded once. I taught you well, he said. Too well. The Asira prime slowed, energy weapons powered down. The dreadnought hailed them, its cold voice cutting through space. General Kael'Tharr, you are ordered to surrender the human anomaly designated Rhen Var. He replied without flinching. She is not here. Lies will only delay the inevitable. Kael'Tharr smiled faintly. Then I will enjoy the delay. Inside the jettison pod, Elya lay curled in silence. The metal above her shook as the outer hull blew free, ejecting her into the black. The pod spun once before stabilizing, its signature blending seamlessly with surrounding debris. She had no viewport, only her breath, her thoughts, and the voice of Caelix in her ear. They've taken the bait, the AI said. 5 boarding parties inbound. They believe you're on the bridge. What about Kael'Tharr? Alive for now. She closed her eyes, lips pressed together. The plan was working. That should have made her feel better. It didn't. On the bridge, Kael'Tharr stood alone as armed officers stormed in. Their armor bore the insignia of the Imperial Purge Corps. Their commander, a pale figure with mechanical eyes, stepped forward. Where's the girl? She left the moment you arrived, Kael'Tharr said calmly. You brought a fleet to catch a ghost. The officer's expression twisted. You trained her well. Too well. A flicker of pride crossed the general's face. She's what you fear most. Not a warrior. Not a rebel. A mind. A question. The officer drew a neural blade. She is the future. Yours or someone else's. The blade hummed to life. Far beyond the system now, the stealth pod entered warp. Elya didn't watch the jump. She stared at the tag in her hand. Elya Rhen Var, a name once buried in fear, now reborn in defiance. Caelix's voice crackled gently in her ear. Coordinates locked for the Arcadium network, a place with sympathizers, thinkers, seeds of resistance. What do I do when I get there? She asked. Whatever you choose. That's what makes you dangerous. She nodded, eyes steady now. My name is Elya Rhen Var, she whispered into the silence. And I'm not done. The pod vanished into the void.